Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today we've got two really crazy rallies to review. And I feel like if I could do this all over again, I absolutely would, but there are some really important things that we can learn about city defense from this video, especially relevant to high-power cities, but there's takeaways for everybody. So if you like this kind of crazy action from KVK and want the important insights on how to defend your city, consider subscribing to the channel and throwing a like on the video. Intro sequences like the one that you saw here take probably like an hour per minute to edit. It's actually a lot of work, even though it doesn't seem like a ton of stuff goes into it. So if you could smash that like button, it would really support the channel, and I very much appreciate your support. So let's talk about these two rallies on my city. This happened in a live stream, and you can sort of see the super chats fly up every now and then, and stuff happening on the sort of screen from the stream. However, you'll see in the stream that I call out, hey, if I take this rally, I'm going to lose at least 10 million power. I call it out on stream, but I don't run away from the rally, and most people probably would. Now, there's a couple reasons why I stayed. Now, live stream chat will all be like, content, but you generally shouldn't try to lose 10 million power. And the reason that I knew losing 10 million power was inevitable, because in this situation where you can see they just have a ton of people gathered outside my city, I'm not on territory, I'm not near any allies, I'm random ported right by their pass, they're going to reinforce. And even if I were to have the strongest garrison of all time, if they keep reinforcing, I'm going to get burned. And at the power level I had, 177 million, if I get burned, I'm losing at least 10 million power. That's just how that's going to work. No matter how much damage I do to them, I'm still going to lose that 10 million power number or more, and you'll see it is more, because I am just going to have the hospital fill, and I just have that many troops. That's what's going to happen. You can't random port. I had Frenzy going, so there's like no getting away once the rally has connected. The Frenzy was like 10 minutes from when the rally connected, so I knew I was going to ride this all the way down, and I was very comfortable with that fact. Now, the second rally we took, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute, I knew I had the escape valve of the Peace Shield, which was my intention to pull that ripcord after my hospital completely filled. But this rally, by the way, with the Tariq ibn Ziyad and the Sargon primary, I think was really strong. And I've got to say, coming out of this experience, that I feel like the YSS and Theo, as I mentioned the last time I took big rallies, are really dated. We need new commanders to defend our city, and the developers themselves have said, yeah, the city defense commanders that are available today really are inadequate. Maybe that's my word, but it really is inadequate compared to the power level of the rallies that are available. Now, this is for a number of reasons, in part because you can go mono troop type in a rally, and mono troop type is absolutely in every way the meta in this game. All your equipment can benefit that troop type. All of your iconics can benefit that troop type. And with the addition of the iconics, it's really pushed city defense out of the realm of being viable. You can even see recently at 1.5 billion power, Yoda, 808, also known as Justin, he got rallied. And even in a short rally, he had like 400,000 troops hit his hospital. And he was like, man, if this ran longer, this is me reacting actually, but like, man, if he ran that thing longer, if they had reinforced it, I mean, they'd kill his troops too. So it would cost a good bit more to try and accomplish that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that city defense is really not advantaged. And in fact, in a lot of ways, it's really advantageous to be 80 million power or less, because if they run a high skill damage rally, you're actually not going to have your hospital overflow, probably. Especially true, of course, if you can pull the ripcord with a Peace Shield, which is what I'm going to do here. Now, in this instance, I tried something a little bit different. I wanted to try Flavius as the secondary. Is this a good idea? I don't know. In hindsight, and it's easy to say this in hindsight because I have perfect information now, but in hindsight, if I had enough lead knowledge of the fact that, like, wait a minute, this is a cavalry rally, in my brain, if I had thought, hey, I should switch to my Xeno, I absolutely would run the Xeno Theo as the combo at the start and maybe switch to a YSS to handle this situation. Okay, and there's actually a lot we can talk about with combos, but let's jump in game and look at these reports and then get to the learnings. Okay, here's the first rally on my city, and I told you I'm going to take a lot of deads. This is largely in part because of the number of troops they can have in their rally with Season of Conquest technology. But the number for me was 1.2 million dead troops. The number for them was 1.3 million dead troops. I also lost some resources and had 760 million hit the hospital. You've heard me say this before, but I really don't look at the Sev wounded number from the perspective of the trade quality, because that's like a rounding error. I mean, I run out of my city 2 times to open field fight, and I have that many in my hospital. That's not really a concern for me, but it is important to look at this in terms of how was the overall trade going. If it had been 100% dead for me and 100% dead for them, then it would have been pretty bad. But the reality of the trade is I end up positive here, at least in terms of troops killed. And of course, I do have some AoE, 38,000, 54,000, 20,000, and another 13,000 to sort of round things out. Now, that said, yeah, losing 12 million power is kind of a big deal, but at 177 million power, and in this KVK where we have almost no fighting whatsoever, I will still lose astronomically less total power in this KVK than any normal KVK I'm in. So with that said, we can look at the troop buffs as well, and there's some kind of important things to get a peek at. First of all, I chose this support skill, and I don't know if I would choose it again. 40% attack when you're not shielded, 30% defense when you are. This support skill in Heroic Anthem KVK is really powerful for city defense because it benefits all troop types, baby. So that's infantry, archers, cavalry, and even my siege units getting a massive freaking boost. By the way, I did run a rally, like an 8-hour rally, to launch my siege units, at least the T4s, out of my city. And I wanted them out of my city because they're trash. Get rid of your siege. They don't help for defending your city. They would just take up my hospital, and then my better troops wouldn't be able to fill. So the T4 I got rid of, I should have sent the small amount of T5 I had out of my city as well. That's one of the takeaways. And then the other support skill I chose was Ever-Changing Tactics, 20% increased skill damage. And as you saw during the sort of rally itself, I switched in the middle to Belisarius. I should have done it a little bit sooner, because when they are below 50% strength, they get 25% all damage. And 25% all damage is absolutely freaking savage, man. Now, in terms of the stats, they obviously have some great stats running here. 235 attack, 195 or 190.5 defense, 96 health, and then, of course, the max almost number of iconics here. The accessories, they don't have crit. And I'll show you the gear that I used for defending my city in a little bit. But I've talked before in many videos how city defense is disadvantaged because you just don't have the equipment nor the commanders to really handle it. And I will say this result is fine, but I don't know. Like, do I think that it's viable to really defend your city in this game? No, I kind of don't. At a certain level of power and a certain strength of enemy, and if they've got the field, I mean, you're just going to get wrecked, as I described. Now, what I say I got wrecked here exactly, I don't know. I think this is an okay trade, but I feel like I would like to make this more positive. So we'll try to speculate on what those things are, but first, let's look at a couple other things. I did get this as a result of, having had my city rallied. The consolation prize is 5,000 troops back. Okay. And I will point out, by the way, a couple other things that are really important in this report. You can see here that my siege pretty much all went to my hospital. Like 10% of them died. The 30,000 just about went to my hospital. You'll notice that almost entirely infantry died here. And you'd be like, wow, why is it that all your infantry are dying, Chisgule? And the reason is that with the equipment I had, the infantry have more stats. And also, I have the special unit for infantry. So the other units are weaker. So they hit the hospital first, which meant I had more infantry left over at the end to all die. I think one thing I could have considered doing is not only sending my T4 siege out of my city and my T5 siege, but also maybe sending the counter troop type, like maybe send my cavalry out of my city, because we know that the infantry they rallied with do extra damage to cavalry. So to just 100% fill that rally I was launching to get as many troops as I could out of my city, which is counterintuitive because you'd think, bro, keep your troops in your city, wreck this, wreck these guys. But that's not really how it works. I did get reinforced, which I definitely appreciate. And one mechanic that most people don't understand about reinforcement is that your trade quality as the defender can astronomically improve when you're getting reinforced. And there's a number of reasons why that's the case, but in part because you buffer how many of your troops are sort of dying, I think, with your allies' troops sort of getting sev wounds and dying. So I feel like every time, and I can't say this definitively, but I feel like every time I've been really reinforced a lot, I have a lot more of my units get slightly wounded over the course of the fight, and then I don't have nearly as many deads. That's just my perspective on how that goes, but maybe that's a wrong reaction to what I'm watching. Maybe that's not exactly what's happening, but either way, getting reinforced is obviously really important, and I was so far away from everything that there was really no way for folks to get to me. It is possible that if at the time they had set the rally, I had marshaled folks to take a long walk to try to get to me, that I could have had some field support for this rally, and the field support would have gone a very long way and potentially making it so they could not have gotten the burn. It would have been possible, but I was off doing other things. Like, we were sort of burning stuff. Not that it really mattered, but anyways, let's go look at the next report here. And in this situation, as I mentioned, I ran Theoflav. As soon as I had actually understood, if I had really processed the fact that they were running calves, I absolutely should have done Xenoflav or Xenotheo rather than Theoflav. But I wanted to try the really high damage up front from Flavius and also the damage from Theo, because I knew I was going to pull the ripcord on a peace shield. I knew that was going to happen. So I wanted to front load as much damage as I could. And you may be like, Chisgule, you were going to use a peace shield. Why did you take any deads at all? And there's two reasons. The first reason is that when in the past I pulled the ripcord with a peace shield and I didn't get my full hospital, I pulled it early, I felt like I could have done better. So I absolutely wanted to, for sure, hit dead troop amount, a small amount anyways. I didn't want to miss out on any of those deads that I could have inflicted. The other thing is that I actually go to the other section of my backpack instead of the boost section of my backpack to look for the peace shield. I don't use a peace shield all that often, especially in like, it is a higher stress situation, although you'll see in the stream I'm calm-ish as it's happening. So then I go to the little up arrow on the screen and, use the peace shield that way. So anyways, that ran maybe a little longer than I thought it would, but also I was extremely comfortable getting some amount of deads to get deads on them here. So 829,000 dead for them, 185,000 dead for me. I did get reinforced, I think, twice. And I did go to kick folks out of my city to then be able to use the peace shield. You cannot peace shield when folks are in your city. That's important to keep in mind. And my AoE did some work here. 76,000, 117,000. That is, a small amount, but not nothing, adding on to the trade quality here. And if we look at the troop buffs, this time around, they used oblique tactics, which obviously is a bit of a mistake because I pulled the ripcord with a peace shield. I think the time where they really should have used oblique tactics was the first time they rallied my city. Because let's be real, we know they're sniping my live stream, and they know I have a war frenzy. They know I'm not going anywhere. That would have been the time for oblique tactics, but I think they thought I would run it down again. Not the case. One time was enough for me. I can call that content, like 2, 3, 4 times. I don't know how much more value I'm getting from that from a content standpoint anyways. So yeah, I ran it down once. Wasn't going to do that too many times. And I used Tragedy's End this time because I wanted to have a damage over time to activate the silence from Flavius. Again, easy answer to have done Xenoflavius instead if I had realized early enough that, and I think my good friend Mr. Sheep had mentioned to me on stream, like, oh, it's a Cav rally. I just didn't process in my mind, like, oh yeah, Cav rally means you should use your infantry commanders for the 9% all damage against cavalry. Absolutely should have done that. Oh, so doing that again. I also think that Theo, and I feel like YSS, like these commanders are just dated, man. We'll look at their kits in just a minute and talk about this more. So they've got a absolutely completely maxed Cav rally on me here. And X-Y Nevsky is a great rally to run against a high power city. That is a good choice. I don't know if Joan would do better, but it's neither here nor there. It's about the same either way. And if we look at the consolation prize, I got 203 cavalry back. Woohoo! And also, you can see the troops that I had die here. Took the siege out of my city. It is now more archers that died, which is kind of interesting. And that's in part because I peace shielded early. So I might have at the end had like only infantry left, and then a lot of them would have died. But because I pulled the peace shield early, this time it was archers, and I'm pretty happy to send some archers to the bin here, because in this KVK we have had almost no action, okay? So now I want to talk to you a little bit about city defense and what the heck do you do? Because there's not a great way to defend your city. And I actually got a message from Fleisch kind of hypothesizing some ideas, and I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'll give full credit where credit is due, but he said, Chisgule, he said, I feel like in this situation, it would have been worth trying Flavius with Skippy. And I think he's probably right. I think that the extremely high skill damage would have worked. And I think that these commanders and this generation of commanders would be really good, especially considering that he's using an XY rally. I don't know if this would have worked necessarily against the infantry rally, but I do think it would have been really good against the cavalry rally. So I think this is a choice that would have been worth making if I were doing this all over again. I also think that the Xeno would have been perfectly fine. And I think you really do need to have the city defense talents and also this talent over here if it's cavalry. Against that infantry rally, I'm not entirely sure what garrison I would put on my wall to do better. Maybe just use the archers? I mean, we know archers do well against it, Amonatori and Artemisia, but like, I don't think it's exactly Artemisia that contributes to the greatness of that trade. Is it maybe Amonatori? Maybe? She does do extra damage to infantry, right? I mean, maybe, but it's archers deal damage to infantry. I just don't think that there's a ton of great options here for defending your city. But I would now lean toward the newer generations of commanders if I were doing this again. And by the way, I have mentioned this before, but you absolutely must, I mean must, keep multiple talent builds on hand so that when you hear what enemy rally is coming your way, you can see here I've got a cav skill build, right? And this is a city defense build. And this is a city swarm build. So I have multiple builds available. In fact, on my YSS and Theo, I have even more options. I believe I've got 3 options on there for like, hey, what might I want to do? Which I think you want to have, right? I have a build designed for skill damage rallies. I have a build designed in case they're swarming my city. I can swap to this in a panic. And I have a build for Attila Takeda, right? If there's no skill damage, you can free up a lot of talent points. And I think that's really worth doing. So food for thought if you're defending your city. On the equipment front, here is the equipment I was using. I've got the Hope Cloak and the Eternal Knight. Now, the reason I have these 2 pieces is because the number of stats they have is really, really high, and it's all defensive stats, which is great in Heroic Anthem KVK. And the other thing that's really advantageous about this is that I have a lot of infantry in my city. I used to be running all 3 SEP bonuses for the 2-piece bonus. Not anymore because I have so many infantry in my city. I'm an inf player, right? I have the 2-piece bonus for archers with the archer bow and the archer gloves. I have the cavalry helmet and the cavalry boots. And of course, I've got the ring and horn. Everything you see here is iconic, but obviously none of these talents are relevant because they're for different troop types specifically. Now, I don't have a leadership set crit yet, but it is something that I will eventually get to once I think I've worked on my accessories a good bit more. So I'm definitely interested in your thoughts down below in the comments. Is there anything else that's major that we could have done differently that you think would have gotten a better result? I'm really eager for it. Big shout out to the folks that popped into voice with me during the live stream that this took place in. That included Mr. Sheep, War Daddy Chad, Teddy, and probably a few others. But if you want to see when this unfolded live, I would encourage you to go check out that live stream and watch the whole context of leading up to it, what happened afterwards, prep for the next rally, because I think it's really educational in what to do in defending your city. So that video and that card will be in the end screen in just a moment. And alternatively, if you just want to see another crazy city rally, you want to see Justin at 1.5 billion power getting rallied, and that report I was talking about where I was like, man, I mean, if they ran a rally against him for a while, they'd lose a lot of troops, but they were inflicting some decent damage as well. Card will be in the end screen for that too.